Hello, my name is Casey Sander and welcome to the Marketing Forum podcast, where I catch up with lots of different people on all things work, career, life, and of course, marketing, comms, and creative. In this episode, I catch up with Debbie Warner. Debbie founded the Wild Wine School. She originally founded the Wild Wine Club, and before that, she was a sommelier in restaurants. She briefly branched into marketing, but she has some real interesting knowledge of all things like crowdfunding, how she evolved her business, doing it all with a newborn baby. So it's a really great conversation for anyone that's trying to move their side hustle into a proper business. It's always great to catch up with people like Debbie. So I really hope you enjoy. So I wanted to have a chat with you about your journey from Wild Wine Club and then before that sommelier. But I realised that I actually don't know loads about how you even started your wine life. So I wondered if you could give me a bit of an intro to how you kind of got the bug.
Sure. I guess it's a bit of a long story. I always enjoyed drinking wine. And I studied down in Plymouth and did marine biology and oceanography, so nothing to do with wine.
But yes, still liquid.
Yeah, liquid, and also interestingly, like a science subject, which has come in handy further on. So I, after graduating, moved back to London and then Bristol, because that was slightly closer to the sea. And then my boyfriend at the time was living in Cornwall, and I was like, I just need to either go back to London and get on with my life and ditch the boyfriend, or I need to move to Cornwall. But what am I going to do if I move to Cornwall? And we had been to eat at 15 quite a few times, and I was like, oh my God, I just love it there, but they would never ever have me work there. I've got no experience. Like, what do I know about food and wine? And so I sent them my CV, and they got back to me, and I was like, okay, I am moving to Cornwall. So I quit my job and started at 15. And I think within the first month, they put me on the WSET level 2. I think they had one running and someone dropped out, and they were like, I think I'd said, I'd really like to do that if it comes up. And they were like, do you want to do it now? And I was like, yes. So by that point, it had been 2 years since I'd finished my degree. And I was just absolutely loving studying again. And I realised that wine was this amazing vehicle that you could like explore the world with. So encompassing all the science that I'd learned at uni in the way that like grapes are grown and wine is made is super scientific. And then I also loved traveling, and so obviously there were all these regions around the world, and so many different cultures that it plays into, and the whole food and wine pairing. Like, I've always loved food and wine, and so there was that. And then there's loads of interesting stuff like geography and like the soil science. It's just was fascinating, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is what I want to do with my life. And it was, I know everyone talks about it, but they get the wine bug. And after that, it was just every annual leave that I had, I would plan like a wine trip. Every holiday was to a wine region. I then went on to do the level 3 straight away, and after that, the diploma straight away, and just carried on studying and drinking and traveling. So that was how it all started.
Oh, I mean, there is something in I think food and wine, it's just something amazing about it, isn't there? It's just on so many levels. There's like the social element of that kind of like sharing, and then when you've worked in food and it's like the creativity around it,
and also, sorry, that's something I was thinking, there's something else that I loved about it, and it was the people. Like, I just couldn't believe the generosity of the producers and the growers, the viticulturalists and the winemakers, you know, you go to a vineyard and if you show interest and all they want to do is show you that, you know, it is love. They should want to show you their wine. They want to show you their vines. They want you to taste the grapes from the vine, taste the wine that they made in this interesting vintage that was like, should have been too wet, but actually they managed to make that, you know, like, and you just become part of this global family, which is amazing.
And so you then sort of ended up as like a trained sommelier, and once you finished at 15, was that when you decided to set up your own club?
Yeah, so when I stopped working at 15, so at 15 I'd been working part-time in marketing, part-time as a sommelier, and I took a marketing job that was quite a big marketing job, and realised just before the end of my I don't know what it's called, the period when you can leave straight away. There's like a 3-month period at the beginning where I could leave straight away, but after the 3 months I would have had to give 3 months notice, and so on the day the day before I could give my 3 months notice, I was like, I can't do this for another 3 months. So I just handed in my notice, and I managed to persuade them somehow to keep me on just doing their social media on a freelance basis, and decided I was going to go freelance. So I was like, okay, this is my first client. I've got one client. And then I was like, this means I can do wine stuff, because I'd really been missing the wine stuff. And I just knew I don't want a full-time job in marketing. I want to be working with wine. And so I then thought to myself, okay, I've been a sommelier, but I'm not really like a name, or I don't have anything that people know me by. So I've got to do my own thing. I need to like make something happen. And I'd always had this dream of doing something, a dinner for my friends, like digging a table in the sand, because I had lots of chef friends from 15, getting someone to cook, just having some amazing wine. And then I was like, I can turn this into an event, and I can PR the hell out of myself by doing these events. Because at the time, no one was really doing it. It wasn't like, you know, now there's loads of different feasts and stuff, which are amazing. And I'm so pleased that there are, because I actually think that's the nicest way to eat, is with lots of people and out in the open. So I did the first event with Adam, who was the head chef at 15, although I don't think he was at the time. I think he might have just come back from Australia. But yeah, so I guess that's how the first Wild Wine Club started, and then went down really well. It was a whole lot of work, but yeah, from there I went on to do more events, and people seemed to really enjoy it, which was amazing. And it also meant I had a load of great photography that I could get out there and show people what I was doing.
It's a really good combination when you've got like the marketing skill set, that you know, okay, so I know I need to do this, this and this to give myself publicity, but actually that's not what this is about. It's a really good dovetail sometimes, isn't it? But yeah. I just think events are one of the most stressful things in marketing.
So stressful, but also, so they're definitely the most stressful, but they're also the most fun and rewarding. I mean, the lead up to an event is just, you know, wild. And then you have the event itself, and the adrenaline is pumping. Yeah. And then afterwards, you feel like you've been to Glastonbury or something.
I know. It's bizarre, isn't it? It's like there's nothing quite like it, like emotional roller coaster wise, of just being like, you know, because it's like the sense of organising loads of stuff and then thinking like, what happens if no one comes? And you're just like, oh. And then afterwards, but I just feel like there's no exhaustion quite like the post-event exhaustion.
No, and you have to have done your prep for after the event, before the event, because the adrenaline stops well, for me anyway, immediately after the event. So I find, which I don't always do, but like I should really have my e-newsletters ready to go for after the event, like social media ready to go for after the event, but that doesn't really happen at the moment.
You're more organised than me.
Well, no, it's only because I no, but I think that comes through not being particularly organised. So I know that I need to organise myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So tell me about the brand then. So you started Wild Wine Club.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you did your first event, had you already kind of like bedded the brand in and everything, or did you kind of do it as a bit of a sort of prototype?
No, it's kind of a prototype, and I wanted it to feel really spontaneous and fun, which it was. It was very much me saying, right, I need to do something now that I love, and that was the product of it. But when I was at uni, I'd run like club nights, like music club nights, and I wanted to bring some of the energy of that into food and wine. At the time as well, the dining kind of, I don't want to say scene because that's a bit
No, I know what you mean though.
Like, it's really quite stiff and stuffy. And whilst I really enjoyed going out, and 15 of all the places to go and eat amazing food in Cornwall at the time was the most relaxed. If you look now, there's loads of amazing places to go that are really casual, and so I wanted to bring some of that like energy and excitement, and also allow people to have something that was delivered by someone a bit younger. And obviously that was a while ago, so I was still in my 20s, so which I'm obviously not anymore, and I wouldn't consider myself delivering something younger now. But at the time, there weren't younger chefs and there weren't younger sommeliers doing their own thing. Everyone was embedded into this system of like, these are the restaurants you must work at, and this is what you must do, and this is how we serve wine, and this is how we serve food. And I think like in my nature, I like to be a little bit of a disruptor, and so I wanted to bring that to it as well. And so the brand for me, I wanted at the time for it to be quite, I used, I think, like Courier font, and was just like, cool, this is what it is.
No, but I think you're absolutely right though, because and even now you've still got around the periphery the restaurants and stuff that are still very much formal. They want it to feel formal. Their price is reliant on it being quite a stiff experience.
Yeah,
because you're gonna have like, I don't know. And I used to be quite into that kind of way of eating, just because I would, love great big tasting menus. And now my rule is that if I feel like I have to keep my back straight through the meal, I don't want to eat there. So, you know what I mean? When you get that bit of an ache in your back because you're just like, okay, I have to be quite smart here because it's very formal. So now I'm just like,
if there's ever more than 2 people at my table at the time doing something for me.
Yeah.
I do not want someone putting a napkin on my lap at the same time that someone's pouring me a glass of water, and someone is passing me some food, and someone is, crumbing down it's sometimes too much.
It is too much. And I think but also the element that I find really awkward is that it was like, you have to say that maybe you didn't really quite like the dish. So, there's times when I've maybe left a little bit at the bottom and they're like, what's wrong with that? And you're like, nothing, but I'm 4 into a 12-course meal, and excuse me if I don't want to drink the dregs from the bowl. But, I don't want to fall out with waiters either.
No.
But there's definitely been a movement. I think you've been quite a big part of that as well, Debbie, like down here, certainly. It's like starting to drive that change.
Thanks. I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily the case. Maybe I guess there's lots of people who were feeling a similar disconnect at the same time.
Yeah, but you need there needs to be people who start, there's, the people who might notice it and might feel it, and then there's the people that do it. So, I think the fact that what you were doing resonated with so many people has encouraged other places to.
Yeah, I hope so. I also think that, interestingly, this year has been amazing and has been a real catalyst for people to start doing more interesting things and explore other ways of delivering food and service.
And then, so you've now evolved what you're doing another step further.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about it.
I have always enjoyed not teaching, but inspiring people and sharing my knowledge, I guess, of wine. And at the Wild Wine Club events, I would always, there was always a intention for people to go away with knowledge, but I never really wanted it to feel like a lesson or education. But it always felt like there was an appetite for more. I would always get emails afterwards. It was lovely, like stand around after dinner and be chatting as the sun was going down. And I was like thinking, oh goodness, there's still hundreds of plates to wash, but someone's talking to me about this specific wine and how it's made. And I just thought, hang on, people do want to know more about what they're drinking. And so some people would say to me, well, what's the next step? Where can I find out more? I think maybe I want to work in wine, or I want to explore this, or I just want to, I want to do a course. And I was thinking, well, where am I sending them? What's on offer at the moment? Somebody who enjoys going out to eat and drink, somebody who wants to experience the outdoors. Do they want to be sat in a classroom at a college? And college education is amazing. And actually what Hospitality Table Cornwall are doing through Truro and Penwith is really fantastic, and I think things are moving on, but my wine education was predominantly sat in four white walls of a classroom with someone writing on a whiteboard about wine, which to me seemed so ironic, because wine for me, as I think now, sparked this amazing joy inside me, and sitting in a classroom does not spark joy.
No.
It almost felt like the education was a necessity to kind of allow me to do what I wanted to do. And I thought, hang on, why can't the education in wine be part of this amazing inspirational journey? And so that's where the concept kind of came from. And I thought I could be just teaching in the wild. And so I did my educator qualification through the WSET, and got approved as an APP, which is an approved program provider. So that means I can teach people the WSET qualification, which was, I think, where I wanted to start, because, they're respected globally. And I also think that it is really good, particularly if you want to work in the industry, to have this kind of structured education. And once you know those basics, you can kind of then go away and break the rules, or realize when people are doing something a little bit groundbreaking, rather than I want to put this tactfully, because there's lots of wine that I really enjoy that is probably what people would class as natural wine, but there's also a lot of wine that's made and is calling itself natural wine that for me is not very good wine. And I feel like knowing the basics and knowing how wine should, I guess, inverted commas, be made, you can then make your own decisions up and make informed decisions about which wines taste good and why. And I know wine is so subjective, but for me, I think it's criminal how many people out there are drinking wine that's been really badly made just because it's got a nice label and just because someone's told them it's natural. And that's my rant over, sorry.
No, I get it. It's the same in any sector, I think, whereby if there's like trends, there's levels, isn't there, around genuine products, and products which are just loopholing into the trend.
Yeah, and I think that's what upsets me, is it's basically greenwashing. Like, I have since the beginning of my career been so passionate about sustainability and wanting to work with producers who work organically, biodynamically, sustainably, regeneratively. And what's upsetting is that people who are using those words and those terms and then making bad quality wine are misleading the public or the drinker into maybe thinking those wines should taste a specific way, which probably isn't the best way that wine could taste. Anyway, sorry.
So through the courses that you're doing, you want to help people be able to notice that for themselves.
Yeah, exactly. And I it's not like, if people really do enjoy drinking wine that tastes like horse manure, that's fine. is fine, but I want them to know that
It doesn't need to.
wine can express a real sense of place. And maybe some people think that tasting like horsemanure is what the place should taste of. That's fine. But for me, it can have more expression than that. And it can also taste of the grape varieties it's been made of. And apparently that's a very English concept, wanting to know the grape variety. You know, the French don't even care. They're like, terroir, blah, blah, this is the region, and taste, you know, and that's great. But I think most of us are interested in picking apart a wine, and like, why else would you want to study it and appreciate it if you can't pick apart the different flavors and stuff? So I wanted to offer the WCT, but then I always had this vision of creating my own courses as well, because I feel like the WCT is this amazing kind of core starting block, but there's so much more out there in the world that I feel can be brought to life and will also lend itself particularly well to the way that I'm delivering and teaching.
I also think you're absolutely right that there's so many people now who are massively passionate about food and drink, but they're not necessarily working in the sector, or if they are, it's like in the peripheries. I'd probably put myself in that category. You know, I'm not a chef, and I don't work in hospitality, but equally I work around the sector quite a lot, and so I don't need a WSET or WSET qualification. However, it's because you're passionate about it, you do want to expand your knowledge around it.
I'll tell you what's really brilliant actually is that Jim Michelle from Barefoot came on to do his level 2, and they've got Hattie booked on as well to do her level 1, and they're a PR company, and they've realized because they have so many drinks clients that they really want to upskill their staff to have this specialist knowledge. Again, like you, that they would say probably the same thing, that they're passionate about food and drink and work around and with those brands. And Jim was saying actually there was a press release that they needed specialist knowledge for, and so I think there is this market that's not just about people who work in the food and drinks industry directly, but also, as you say, people like yourself who work with food and drink.
Or even people who just love it,
and some of my most passionate students are the people who just love it. I just had a guy come on the level 2 course who got 100%, who doesn't work in food industry. So
but I think so. Have you seen that Laithwaite's advert on TV where it's like the dining table? So there's like a family around the dining table, and the guy like pretends to walk downstairs to the cellar, and then he just gets like a bottle of wine, and it's like it says get that cellar feeling. And I just think that from a human perspective, they've absolutely hit the nail on the head, that people are passionate about it. And the snobbery around being like, okay, I can't be interested in wine or love wine unless I have the cellar and then the 12-bedroom mansion. And I just think they've hit the nail on the head. And I think it's like it's the same reason for why what you do resonates really well, and what they've just done with an advert will resonate really well, is because you both hit the same human like emotion around it.
Yeah, and I think that is actually the most valuable thing about wine education, is with so much, like with such a small amount of increase in knowledge, your appreciation will grow exponentially. Like once you even know like the main 8 grape varieties and what they might taste like, that means that you can go into any supermarket or any wine shop. You don't need to speak to a scary guy behind the counter or girl, although it is always nice to. And you'll know roughly what 8 different types of wine will probably taste like, or have a good idea. And that's just the WCT level 1 that you would get that much information. But I think the reason that I developed a modern introduction to wine is for people with an interest who want more than just that structured WCT education, who want to, I think the nice thing about the course is that it sends people to where they want to go, so you can become your own expert, if that makes sense. So there's lots of, I send you off in all different sorts of angles depending on what your interest is, and then like you say, getting that cellar feeling, you feel like an expert. I think when people take ownership in their education, that's when really sinks in, and that's when you do feel like an expert, because you feel like you've done the work. You haven't just, it's not just rote learning, is that what they say in America, where you like learn the so it's not that. Modern Introduction to Wine is all about like I guess it's more like, it's because it's not a university course at all, but more inspired by people who want to go and read lots of different sources of information and come to their own conclusions. So yeah, it's
exciting. I want to do it. The other thing I wanted to have a chat with you about is, so you did a crowdfunder for the Wild Wine School. I think from a marketing perspective, Marketing Forum podcast, obviously, people want to know about marketing. I think from a marketing perspective, crowdfunder campaigns are really interesting because anybody that's ever done them knows that they are painful in the sense of stress. Tell me about your experience. So how much were you trying to raise?
So I was trying to raise £10,000. I was really hesitant about doing it. I was kind of in two minds about doing a crowdfunder. I really liked the idea of kind of galvanizing this I guess support and telling people about what I was doing before I was doing it. Slightly hesitant and reluctant about asking people for money, and wanted to make sure that I was doing it in the right way. So I made sure that all the rewards I had felt like good value. So I didn't really want to go out there with a campaign that was just like, give me money. So I wanted to pre-sell courses, and I thought that could be a really valuable sales tool. So pre-sale courses at a reduced price, so people were getting a real bargain through supporting at the beginning. Also do some kind of merchy stuff, and I guess the catalyst for me actually ending up going down that route was winning a competition. So I entered, they had a Back Her Business, which was like a campaign to try and get women into business.
With like NatWest or something.
Yeah, so I entered the competition and won. So that meant that NatWest would give me £5,000 of matched funding. So it actually meant I only needed to raise £5,000, and they would then give me £5,000. So that felt quite achievable.
Yeah.
I had a 5 or 6 month old child at the time, and wasn't really getting much sleep. So it was, as you say, a real challenge and struggle. And but it was amazing. It was so rewarding. I think like the nicest thing for me was how many people from all different parts of my life got behind me. And it made me feel really supported in starting a new venture and business. It was definitely a really good way of talking about new business, and also forced me to talk about it. I feel like that's one of my weaknesses. I'm quite good at shouting about what other people are doing, but I'm sure, as you know, it's tough to put yourself out there and to continually kind of blow your own trumpet. I find that really intimidating, but it kind of forced me to do that, which was probably a really good thing.
And also, you know, like you say, I think what's really interesting with what you were doing, you've probably got so many different audiences actually, because you've got like your friends that want to support you because they're your friends, and then you've got the people that want to support because they actually want the product.
Really.
So it's and you raised yours quite quickly, didn't you?
No, I think it was a few. Actually, I'll tell you what happened. With the prize, there was a specific time frame that I had to do my campaign within. But I completely forgot about this, but the WSET, for me to have been able to advertise that I was going to be teaching WSET courses, I had to get the approval from the WSET before I could advertise that I would be doing the courses. So I couldn't say I'm going to be able to offer WSET courses because I had my application in process, and I'd already done the educator course, but they'd still have to approve you as this approved program provider. And so I didn't actually get that approval until 2 weeks into my campaign, so I actually couldn't talk about it.
Oh no.
For the first 14 days of my campaign. Basically what I did was I started a friends and family Facebook group, told them what I was doing, started to get trickles of kind of pledges coming in, and started to get everyone warmed up to say, look, once I get this certification, then we can all start shouting about it. You're going to have to help me because we're only going to have 2 weeks. And so I did get it in a roundabout way in a very short period of time, but it was actually the last 2 weeks. So I don't think I got to my target until 2 days before the end. But then I did manage to get an extra grand after that. So after a nail biting kind of week, I was then like, oh, and I got more than I needed. So yeah, it was complete. Oh God, I think I've pushed that out of my mind. That's stressful.
I know.
I also didn't know when the WSCT were going to, they were saying, oh, it should be this date, but I had to wait for the certificate to come in the post. And I just remember when it came. And actually they gave it to, because they knew I was in a hurry, they sent me an email copy, and I was sat in Lovett's in Newlyn at like 10 in the morning drinking coffee, and they sent the certificate, and I was like, we need fizz.
That's a great place to get wine.
Yeah, it was really good. We just had a swim at Jubilee Pool as well, so it was just like perfect morning. And so yeah, we just had a bottle of sparkling wine, and I was breastfeeding at the time, so I only had like half a glass.
Oh no, whoever you were with was absolutely smashed.
Well, no, literally, you know, Lovett's is tiny, so I was just like, who wants a glass of wine?
Oh man, just before lockdown 1 earlier in the year, we did I took my brother, we did a wine tasting there.
Oh, amazing.
And when we got there, and he said, you know, how many wines do you think it would be? Because we were like debating, do you think, should one of us drive? And I was like, man, I don't know. Like, I don't know how many wines it's going to be. It was 12. Was it 12 or 15? Honest to God. Like, I could barely walk after, let alone. But it was amazing. Like amber wines, really nice amber wines and everything. So it was, you know, so much fun because I hadn't actually tried some of these before.
Nice.
Probably
and they are people who are sitting on the right side for me of like selling wine that is really well made, but also interesting and exciting, and probably a lot of it sits within the natural glass.
Yeah,
but it's great. So if you do want to drink that style of wine, Lovett's is definitely somewhere to go.
Sure. But also I think, you know, that again, they're in the category of just being massively passionate about what they do. So
I'm so great. Yeah.
Anyway, we totally digress.
Sorry, so crowdfunder we were talking about.
Yeah. So crowdfunder, got that done, bosh. And then did you find that after that you had like a swell of like new supporters and stuff, or
I think, yeah, I did. There was definitely more interest. I think on a personal level, it wasn't necessarily the best time for me to do the crowdfunder. I was at that point, I think, really struggling with sleep deprivation, and it kind of reached the peak of like, because it was around that 6-month mark, and sorry, this is probably a bit boring for people who aren't mums, but the breastfeeding was at its peak because it's just before you start weaning. So like you've got this huge, well, I had this huge baby. Thankfully he's not so huge anymore, but a real chunk. And it was the only thing he'd had was breast milk. So I knew that I was giving a lot away. I wasn't sleeping very well. I was just really rinsed after that campaign, and probably didn't capitalize on the support that I did have there. But that's how life goes, you know. And
yeah,
I think, you know, that, and I spoke to my friend before I decided to do the campaign. I spoke to a friend. Do you know Joey Hoolin?
I don't.
Horizon Retreats. She is amazing, but she does lots of stuff about like, I guess she does lots of like journaling and self-reflection and meditation and, you know, not life coaching, but making people feel good about themselves. And so I'd gone and sat on the beach with her and had this real talk, and she was talking to me about how I found working for myself, and like when I'd done it before and what I was going to find challenging and hard. And I was saying that sometimes found it really tough, just being by myself and having the confidence and having ups and downs. And she gave me such good advice, which was just, you know, like, now you're aware of that and you know that it's going to be hard times. You just got to ride it out. Like, whenever you're having a terrible time, you just got to think to yourself, remember, this has happened before and it will happen again. And it's okay, because it's not going to be forever, and there's going to be the high again after that. And I think that was, you know, just recognizing, oh yeah, she's so right. Like, of course this has happened before, and of course it's okay. And obviously it's never fun to be in that place where you're like, but it is okay because it's not forever. So I think that's where I was at then. So it wasn't the worst, and then I knew that things would turn around and that we'd get back to a place where everything would happen.
How old's your baby boy now?
He is nearly 2. He's 2 in February. So
and so obviously you were trying to like launch business with a, you know, very small baby.
What an idiot.
What are you doing? And now you've got terrible twos. So part of that, your kind of impetus for doing that was because you wanted to balance motherhood and work, or, you know, did you have a plan around some of it, or is it just like the way it's happened?
No, I don't know whether there's necessarily a plan. I'm always someone who likes to have kind of a loose, or not a loose, but an idea of where I want to go, but a flexible kind of plan of how to get there, or a loose route of how I think I'm going to get there. But I always want to be really open for that route to change. And I think maybe just having a baby, and this is probably a bit cliche, but made me kind of reevaluate and think about what I really wanted. And also I kind of had this plan that I wanted to do wine education at some point, but it almost just made me like turbocharged. Also, there's lots of, although it's very stressful and exhausting, there's lots of downtime, and I'm used to having my mind working a lot. You know, I'm used to having and enjoy having a job that demands my brain, and I think that's one of the things I found really, really hard about having a small baby. It was constant, like, small tasks all the time, and too many of them, you know, like that really awful thing where you're like, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, but none of it was really like me
stimulating
thinking.
Yeah,
exactly, stimulating, thanks, really good word. And so I was also craving that stimulation again, and education seems to always be where I kind of come back to when I feel like I want to use my brain. So yeah, I think it just turbocharged my long-term plan, if that makes sense, which I guess seems to always happen to me, because that was the same kind of thing with Wild Wine Club. I get forced into this situation where I'm like, I've got to do it, and then I do something that I've been meaning to do for a long time.
Yeah, but it's the best way.
Yeah, I think so.
Because I always think that sometimes we're so good at putting stuff off, and that, you know, ultimately I just feel like sometimes life will like shoehorn you into doing something if you've been putting it off for ages, and then you're just like, crap. But actually, if it's your opportunity to then move, isn't it?
Yeah. Was that the same for the marketing forum? Has that been something?
Well, so the marketing forum, it's really funny the way it came about. One of my main drivers in life generally is like rage. And so if stuff happens and I'm like, I'm so angry about that. And I was getting really annoyed. There was a load of stuff going on in Cornwall. And I was getting really annoyed at the fact that I just felt like there wasn't enough people who were women who were kind of helping showcase the fact that there was like jobs and opportunity and leadership roles. But because I'm not, and I remember having this conversation with Judy Blakeburn, and she's got 2 daughters, as you know, and I was just like, Judy, like if I don't do something, like it's going to be, somebody needs to start making it so that we can like profile women and demonstrate that stuff, but without it being like we're anti-men. So I never wanted to be like, there's no women, there's no men allowed in these conversations. And there is, you know, I make sure that I speak to this, because there's loads of great men with great knowledge.
Yeah, and also to achieve any change, we need to engage
both,
men,
everything, everyone. So that's where, so the impetus from that came. There was, I'm not going to name drop it because I'll get in trouble, but there was some stuff going on, and I was just like, this is ridiculous. And so that's why then Judy was my first ever subject at Watergate Bay Hotel, and so that's where that conversation came from. But yeah, you're exactly right. it's those kinds of it's like when you get squashed into a corner and you just think like, I have to either move now or I don't know. I think we're all like the same in the sense that, you know, when you say like, oh, somebody should do something about that, and then you just think like, why should, like, maybe I should.
Yeah, I quite often do think to myself, oh, someone should do that. Okay, I'm going to do it, and I don't think about the consequences afterwards. It's exactly me that like I just help myself.
But I mean, it is difficult because, like you said, then I think none of us are necessarily, you know, if we wanted to be the center of attention at all times, we'd be on like Broadway. And so there is an element where you just think like, so I don't know about you, but for me, like, I just have to not engage with it. But, you know, like you said, it's hard to push your own stuff, isn't it? But tell me more then about, so firstly, one of the things I'm interested in is why you hated working in marketing.
Oh, I didn't hate working in marketing. I absolutely loved working in marketing. And I love that I can bring marketing to what I do. And I love being in control of the marketing of what I do. But what I didn't like was doing well, I do like doing marketing for someone else. I think what I didn't like was working for someone else. Working for someone else in marketing is very challenging because I'm sure, well, you probably know much better than me that people think they know what they want and they think they know what's best, and you potentially, and you know, I don't even think I was a marketing expert, but I feel like I had quite a good sense of what I needed to do, and I think I was doing a good job. And whilst they were saying I was doing a good job, there was an awful lot of me having to get people to think that ideas were their own, for them to get any any leverage.
I just feel like this is a problem that's really specific to SME marketers, particularly on the small business side. You know, if you work in accounts, you haven't got like Marie in ops coming into accounts and just being like, you know, there's a better way for you to manage that spreadsheet. And so I don't know why when you work in marketing, it's like, oh, you know, Barry had a great idea for a campaign yesterday. And you just think like, that's great, but Barry's the cleaner. I
think the other thing about marketing is that people often get marketing and sales confused, and they think that marketing should have a direct effect on sales and should be really tangible, but often marketing isn't. And whilst it will obviously support sales, and obviously your aim is to drive sales, it's not necessarily the aim of every single campaign isn't necessarily to drive sales, and won't always have the like won't straight away give you the results that people are looking for. And people kind of forget that it's a long game, and you've got to like make sure that you're building brand, keeping your customers, guests, whoever they are, engaged. And also I feel like there's some things in marketing, and maybe I'm wrong and maybe it's not as valuable to the business, but marketing can really bring like extra layers of interest to a business and make sure that the business is engaged in stuff that's going on around the business that isn't directly profit to the business, but I don't know, gives it more.
Well, so I mean, you know, that's like brand value, isn't it? And it's essentially like if you literally just do stuff that generates sales,
you may as well be working in sales.
yeah, and you know, that's great for the business, but ultimately if you've got like a great customer base but nobody knows your brand, there's no brand value in it, then but it's I don't know, it's complicated. And I think other you know, job roles and sectors underestimate the strain on marketers of dealing with that all the time. Like, you're justifying your existence sometimes on a day-to-day. You know, I don't experience that anymore as a consultant, but you know, like in-house marketers, you know, like,
I think there's also a terrible trend down here to hire in-house marketers, pay them a salary for 6 months to a year, and then take their plan and run with it every year for the next 5 years until you feel like it needs a refresh, and then get someone else in for 6 months. and do the same again.
It's but then you do see then in situations like, you know, global pandemic, when like the carpet has been ripped out of under the feet from most businesses, a load of businesses anyway, the ones that have really good, strong marketing have been able to really drive forward and persist in a way that business.
No, I think marketing's super valuable.
Yeah.
But I think it's really sad that down here, or maybe it's not just down here, maybe it's everywhere, but I think it is a bit undervalued, and lots of people think that anyone could do the job. But...
Yeah, I think it's an SME thing. You know, you wouldn't get that in a corporate, would you? Like in a... No. I wouldn't, no. So tell me about then the Wild Wine School in terms of where you are now. So you've already launched it, haven't you?
Yeah. So I was meant to have an official launch in March. Before that, I'd already taught a couple of the WSET level ones, and I'd done a pilot of the organic and biodynamic wine course. And then literally 10 days before what was meant to be my opening launch party at Nankaro, I had to cancel it because it was March, and we hadn't gone into lockdown at that point, but it was on the cards, and I had like winemakers and guests traveling from, well, actually all over the world, to come to Cornwall, and a few of them had cancelled on me. And also I felt that even though we hadn't gone into lockdown quite, I mean, we did by the time it would have been the date, but the mood had switched, and I thought, I really want a party. I want everyone to be excited about this. I don't want it to be people worrying. So I postponed the actual launch, and then moved all my courses online. And so I've been teaching online, which has been amazing. I've worked with Hospitality Table Cornwall as well, so developed a pilot course for them on organic and biodynamic wine, which was amazing, and delivered that online. Then between the two lockdowns, I managed to get one level 2 course in at Nankaro, which was really incredible. And for me, that felt like the real start of what I set out to do. Like on the first day, I take the students out on like a walk around the farm, and we collect different things from nature to inform our like sense of taste and smell. And so we were tasting blackberries and thinking about what a blackberry tastes like and smells like, tasting sloes and thinking about that dryness, so the tannin in your mouth. There was a parasol mushroom, so we were like smelling and tasting the raw parasol mushroom and thinking, that's what a fresh mushroom tastes like. Because these are all things that you have kind of every day, but when you're tasting wine, it's really nice to be able to have those references really fresh in your mind. And I think once your kind of like brain cells are in that zone of thinking about flavour, it's much easier then to pick out the flavours in the wine. So when we're on this walk, I just had this moment of thinking, this is it, it's actually happening, I'm doing my thing. And so that course went really well and was amazing. And then of course it was lockdown 2.0. So I've just made the decision to move everything back online until March next year, just because of the uncertainty. What I found really, really tough was having to postpone and cancel and change plans and keep track of who could make the new date, who couldn't. You know, it was really messy and stressful. So I just thought it's easier just to put a blanket date. I mean, let's hope that by March next year, it sounds positive now, but so everything's going online. And I've just launched my new online course called A Modern Introduction to Wine, which I developed, or I got to test during the first lockdown when I offered free wine training once a week. So that's where I am. I've launched a new course online. I've got my other courses online for the moment. And in the new year, we'll go back to in-person teaching. And also we'll do some wild wine clubs. So get people together for feasts on the beach, in the woods, and have a lovely time.
And life can go back to normal, or ish normal, well, let's not say that. I was going to say to you, do you not find that the online gives you a new accessibility into people?
Yes, so much. And I had always it's another one of those being forced things. But in my like grand scheme was always, I'll do it in person, but I really do want to deliver some stuff online, because I also think that online wine training, there's an opportunity to make that more exciting. Also, I really like the idea with engaging with people from all over the place. As you know, Cornwall is so isolated in so many ways, like geographically, but also I feel particularly, well, it's probably lots of trades, but in the wine trade, it's really difficult to get up to London and to go to all the trade tastings. And actually, during the pandemic, it's been amazing because so much of that stuff has been moved online. I have gone to so many like seminars and wine tastings that I wouldn't have had access to. You know, I go up to London probably once a month before the pandemic, and so, you know, I would see bits and pieces of what was going on, but you know, just had wine boxes delivered to the house every week and being able to join people all around the world and all around the country online. And it was really amazing in the first lockdown to be involved with that. I had people joining from South Africa and Holland, from America, and we were all talking about wine, and it's brilliant. And so, yeah, online is this amazing resource for sure.
I definitely think like that, you know, if there's positives to come out of the pandemic, it's the fact that suddenly you're just like, okay, I can't do live, have to do online. But it's almost like a new community. You know, you knew all those people were out there, but they weren't forced to engage with you, and you weren't forced to engage with them.
Definitely.
So you are going to keep the kind of online stuff going as well?
Yeah, 100%. And so a modern introduction to wine is fully online based. And so that includes live sessions with winemakers from around the world and with experts from around the world. And the only way I can really do that is online. Yeah. It's
8 weeks, isn't it? With you send wine every week.
So at the beginning of the course, you get a box, and so it's got 8 bottles of wine. And so you can just drink it all at once.
I know that. And I was like, oh no, you send it at the beginning.
Yeah, I do. There's a bottle to go with each week of learning. But it's really flexible. You know, you get an email into your inbox once a week, and then we have a live study session once a week. But if you can't make the live study session, then you can watch the recording. But I think the difference between this and other wine education out there that I found is that you or the students are getting access to all these industry experts, you know, from winemakers, viticulturalists, people who sell wine, sommeliers, and that, you know, that's so different to just one person telling you about a subject. And I feel like you can really make your own mind up and start to form your own views and opinions on the wine industry, I guess.
Yeah.
And get excited.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? Like you say, when you're speaking to the people that are actually growing and making, you just can't help but take on their enthusiasm for it either.
I mean, it was so fun. In lockdown, we did a sparkling wine week, and we went to did a live feed, and we did it again at the party actually because people had really enjoyed it. But we went to Langham winery to see the head maker Tommy there, and he did a live disgorgement of like the cork flying out, or not the cork, the yeast flying out of the bottle, and showed people how you cork sparkling wine after it's been made. So I mean, how fun, right?
I know, yeah, people love it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is probably an impossible question to ask you. I'm going to ask it anyway. What's your ambitions with Wild Wine School? Like, would you love it to be like a national, well-known school?
International is the goal.
I was going to say, is it international? But then I didn't want you to be like, oh my God.
No. So my heart's in Cornwall. But no, one of my other passions is, in terms of sustainability, getting people to either travel to vineyards in a sustainable way, or be able to experience vineyards from their home. So I can't give away too much about some of what I've got planned, but I went before lockdown, so last September, October. Oh yeah, that's probably another reason why I didn't capitalize on the crowdfunder campaign, because I just ran away on a boat to Spain, and I got the ferry over to Spain and drove around Spain and Portugal with a friend and my son.
I remember seeing that on your Instagram, I think.
Visited loads of vineyards, and so I know lots of people are thinking about this, but I really am trying not to fly, and I'm not saying I promise I'm never going to fly again, because I'm not sure that's realistic, but I'm really doing everything I can. You know, as a trade, we're or an industry, we're really not that good at the moment. Although people are making headway with sustainability, there's a long way to go. And one of those things that I feel I can change is getting people to try alternative ways of visiting vineyards. So getting people to use the train, the boat, visiting English wineries and vineyards, getting on a bike, like using the Channel Tunnel. There's so many vineyards in Europe that we can access without getting on a cheap flight. So part of what I want to do in the future will extend to taking people over to Europe and showing them vineyards and wineries, but using boats and trains and whatever I can rather than flying. And then also I'm working on courses that give people a real experience from their own home of what it's like in a vineyard or a winery in, I hope, quite a different way to what people are doing at the moment. So, yeah.
I love this. I think it's going to work so well, though. I really do.
I've now told the world.
You don't have to do that now.
I need to deliver. Yeah.
And also, like, the translation of that is like that you might send like a hologram or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's going to involve VR headsets, but I think there's something to do for that too. But,
well, so you need to listen to the podcast I did with Amy Shakespeare she's Cornwall Museums Partnership, and that was on innovation and tech, and she's done loads of stuff with Cornwall Museums with VR and AR.
Cool.
There's cool stuff happening in Cornwall actually with that kind of thing, but
we'll definitely watch that. I have been dipping into your podcasts, but don't manage to sorry. No.
I mean, they're still only new, really, and it's just they're just feeding my insatiable curiosity more than anything. So
that's amazing. I think what you're doing is brilliant.
Well, thank you. I think what you're doing is brilliant. I can't wait to see it kind of evolve. I just I think you've really hit on something really special, and I think the way that you've kind of branded it is really wonderful, and I just think it's so many people are going to engage with it. So
thanks. I hope so. In fact, an order just came through while I was on the phone to you, so that's exciting.
Yes, I also really need wine glasses, and I saw your tasting wine glasses, and I mean, I'm not going to use them for tasting. I'm just going to use them for checking it out. Yes,
they're like perfect size for when you're just having lunch or supper and you don't want to have a huge glass of wine, but you'd quite like a little glass, and maybe two. Because it's only small, it's fine to have two. Yeah. And also I quite like the shorter stemmed glasses at the moment. Me too.
And they're quite short, aren't they?
Yeah, they're short. They're really good shape for fizz actually. Because I'm not into huge flutes, but yeah. Yeah, no, they're great. Get some.
I will. I'm gonna. I was looking last night. I was like, yes, doing it. Well, I will let you get back to your business, motherhood, juggling life.
So I hope you enjoyed that session with Debbie, and no doubt you're in the process right now of signing yourself up to a Wild Wine School class. So please do stay in touch with the Marketing Forum by either following us on social, signing up to the mailing list, or subscribing yourself to one of these. See you soon.